Good morning. I'm Barbara Mel Goldman with Channel 22, and I have the privilege of being with Bill Peter, a friend and a futurist. Bill, today's show, and not mine, is Society Trends and Likely Futures. Welcome, Bill. It's nice to see you back here again.
It's fun doing another show.
And we're going to be talking about the cycle of a successful life. Today, Bill, we know that we all want a successful life, and you, as a futurist, have defined a cycle of successful life. Please explain your thoughts to us here in Sun City Grand.
When I mentioned this title to my wife, she thought it was a little presumptuous.
Okay.
That I should be describing the cycle for a successful life, because who is the authority, right? And I don't pretend to be the authority, but I've looked at lots and lots of situations, and I've given many seminars on this subject, so I will take a crack at it. I have a little chart that I want to show you to start off, and it's called Life's Journey. Now, the chart will be on the screen a little bit, and I will be describing it. In the upper corner here, you see the stages of life in life's journey. So you go from conception to birth, and then you're a child, and then you're a teenager, and then you get married, and then you have children and grandchildren, you retire, and you have great-grandchildren, and you have death, and hopefully you live in eternity. And then on this axis is when you're at that certain stage of life, what are your needs? This is a cycle of life. So when you're just in the process of the 9 months in your mother's womb, all your needs are provided. Your emotional state is at peace. You have no financial needs, no clothing and transportation needs, and your home is your mother's womb.
Boy, those were the good old days.
Those are the days, okay? And then you're born. And once again, your physical needs, you have a desire to be safe and be held and cuddled. And your emotional needs, you want to be comforted and nurtured, but still no financial needs. Maybe your clothing is diapers, but your home is with mom for sure. And interestingly enough, after death and in eternity, all your physical needs down at the bottom of this chart are provided. And you're again at peace just like you were in your mother's womb. And you have no financial and no clothing, transportation, and in heaven with God, perhaps, instead of in your mother's womb. So life, the cycle of life, goes from mother's womb to eternity. And interestingly enough, the needs and concerns are solved before birth and are solved after death, and we live in between birth and death. And that's what we go through these cycles. And I have a big circle here. The quest is for peace of mind in life's journey. How can you have some peace in your inner being, in your soul, during this time that you're going through these cycles? We have many homes, maybe different buildings, but our original home was in a mother's womb, and our final home is with God in eternity. So what are our physical needs, our emotional needs, our financial needs over time? I've wrestled that, and then I came to the conclusion that there are certain things you have to do to have a successful life. I've had workshops, and I've asked people, what is the definition of a successful life? And then we put down, if you died at age 20 or died at age 30, it's a tragedy. You haven't had a full life. Maybe a successful life is a healthy, long life. Mm-hmm. Maybe a successful life is one of friendships and love and companionship and so on. And then somebody else says, yeah, but it's good to be rich. Okay, some people...
Do we measure success by riches?
A lot of people do. The word success, you see somebody driving down the street in a Lexus, they must be successful. Mm. right? We actually have in our vocabulary,
concept.
it's a symbol of success. They live in a mansion. They must be successful. So success is tied a lot to finances in our psychology, in our thinking. The richest person in the corporation is the person who made the most money. You know, the person who gets to be president of the United States is a success because they have gotten most votes from everybody else and are appreciated by the people that voted for them. And if you lose an election, well, you're a failure. You're not a success. You didn't succeed. The football team that goes out on the ball field, and there's a success who wins the Super Bowl, and then there's a failure who doesn't. So we measure success in lots of different ways. Personal wealth is one of them. I'm not saying it's the best. It's, in fact, probably one of the worst. But we do have measures like success in life that way. So if we want to have a successful life, we ask ourselves, what should we do? The dilemma of the thing is, it starts with the parenting that we receive. And so when we were first born, what kind of help did we get along the way from our parents?
When you say help, you mean by means of nurture?
Nurture, love, companionship. The things that a child needs is security and safety and feeling good, and somebody to cry on their shoulder and so on like that. And in addition to that, the first teacher of the child is the parent. So that's where you learn to be kind to others. That's where you learn to not scream at your brother and sister. That's where you learn to share your toys. All those things which seem trivial are very fundamental principles in growing up. So those first 6 years are critical. Now,
Well, why do people sometimes stumble on the road to successful life? Why the stumble?
a stumble, I'll give you an example of a stumble that is scary but true. A successful life has a happy childhood, and then you respect your parents, you love your parents. It's two different things, respecting your parents and love your parents. And you're learning how to read and write and everything. Count to 10, a lot of things before you go to school. Those are important things, but why do some people stumble? I think a big word is instant gratification. When a child especially gets to be 10 to 15 years old, they start to separate themselves from parents and starting to get more influenced by their peers, their friends. And if a child gets into a bad crowd, quote unquote, now there's a good opportunity for a stumble. Because if they happen to get into a crowd that has smoking and alcohol and drugs and sex, and they're 10 to 15 years old, and gang wars and all that kind of thing, and they're in a bad crowd, they're going to be influenced to be like those people. They, no matter what their parents say, the parents have a tough time influencing when the peers are influencing. So the biggest stumbling block is what crowds you go around with. And parents have to be helpful in that area. If somebody gets off on the wrong track with the wrong crowd, the chances of having a successful life slip dramatically. Now, you should, as a child, be learning and respecting and learning something new every day and respecting and loving your parents. And then you go to school and you love school because your parents helped teach you and they read to you every day and so on.
And you want to continue.
And you want to continue because that's a fun thing. And then you study, and keep learning, having fun, but learning. And then you graduate from high school. And then you have to pick a career. And if you haven't got enough education, you might want to go on to college. And then you finally get married. Not everybody does, but many people do. and then you have children. Well, one of the biggest stumbling blocks in U.S. society and worldwide society today is the children are being born before the parents have had a good education, a job, and a loving marriage.
And they're not providing that emotional security.
They're not providing the emotional and physical security if the child is born without a father. There's a biological father, but the father is absent.
No
Or
foundation.
they don't have a job. So the cycle of a successful life seems maybe boring to some people or old-fashioned, but if you have two parents, you got a much better chance. If they are married, you've got a much better chance. If they love each other, you've got a much better chance. And if the two parents hang around, you've got a good chance. But if you have fighting going on in the family and one parent not around, then what's happened is you've broken the cycle of life. The cycle of a successful life is to build a little bit for a child all along the way. And before they have good education, and before they have a good marriage, and before they have a job, if they have a child, wow. That's a big, difficult thing. Is it possible to get over that hump? Absolutely it's possible. It's just much more difficult. And that's probably the biggest single conflict. Unfortunately, in 1960, 3% of all births to women in the United States were to unmarried mothers. Today that number is 39% of all births. Last year there was 4.2 million births. Of the 4.2 million births, 39% of them were to unmarried mothers. That means there was not this marriage and love and everything to build on for the child.
How would this life cycle apply to seniors for a successful life? How do we fit this into the way we're living?
Well, the first thing, and we've talked about this before, and I'll just quickly cover it. The best thing that seniors can do is reflect on the past and then plan for the future. So the reflection on the past is what happened to me at various stages of my life when I was 2 or 10 or 20 or 30. And we've talked about that in a previous discussion.
Birth to 100.
Birth to 100 and our sharing of our wisdom. What wisdom did we learn at each age? And so, as we've discussed, and I won't go into detail, we learn something at each age that we can then say, I'm going to apply that the rest of my life. And that is reflecting on the past. Now, just because your past has been a little rocky for some reason, Dad wasn't around, there wasn't enough money, I didn't ever go to college, whatever the reason was, I was born black, I was born a woman, I was born what I thought was a disadvantage. Now, that's the past. What's the future? The future is, can I still provide for my family by getting a good education? Can I still provide for my family by being loving and caring? Now, as seniors, when we're, let's say, 55 and over, 65, 75, we can still reflect on the past. What did we do that we were happy with? What did we do that we learned things from?
What worked?
What worked for us? Dr. Phil has this thing. Dr. Phil is a pop psychologist, but he's funny. He asks people, so you had a divorce, so he beat you up. So you went back and he beat you up again.
So do you have an S on your forehead?
So he
stupid.
went back and he beat you up again. And so then Dr. Phil says, is what you're doing working for you?
Yeah.
And the S on your forehead, if it's not working for you, why do you keep doing it?
That's right.
And sometimes it takes a psychologist to tell us what we ought to be able to figure out.
Yeah. Well, Bill, it sounds like common sense, but why is it so difficult for people to do and follow that recommended cycle?
Well, the cycle of life that went up of making sure that you have a job and a husband and a wife and so on before you get pregnant and have a baby. That's instant gratification as opposed to delayed gratification. Instant gratification is terrifically tempting. Instant gratification, for example, is we live on a line between pleasure and pain. We're in the middle. And what we'd like to do is have some pleasure. And we want to avoid the pain. So let's go for the pleasure. So if the pleasure is, some alcohol and some staying out at 3 in the morning and having sex out of marriage and drugs and all that, that's instant gratification. That's pleasure right now.
Never mind the consequences.
Never mind, but instant gratification says, I want it now. Okay? Delayed gratification, which is more mature, says, I better get an education before I have a baby. I better be responsible that if I'm going to be a sperm donor, I want to be sure that I'm going to be a good father. You know, and that's moral responsibility that has to be taught by parents. But the problem is we like instant gratification, and you know what? Adults, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds still want instant gratification, and they don't necessarily think about the longer-term consequences. And a rich, successful life says, I've got to do my responsible things first, and then I can play. But play, when I was growing up, I had to do my school homework before I went out to play. That was just,
that was a given.
the homework had to be done before I went out to play. And I guess I got that beat into me.
Well, that created your study habits.
That became my study habits. It had to be done. That doesn't mean I didn't get to play, but I wanted to play, so I had to get that homework done.
So you were taught to prioritize.
That's right. And the same thing with seniors now. We'll get back to that subject that you raised. Seniors take a look at their past and then say, now, what is a successful life for me? Just pick a number. I'm 65 years old. What is a successful life going to be? And the secret, and I've had seminars on this, is you have to look at it in various dimensions. What is a successful life financially? Are you going to be able to handle your expenses and so on? Or you maybe have to keep working. Just because you're 65 doesn't mean you stop working.
No, not
Because if you
necessarily.
can't handle your responsibilities, you better keep working. So, financially dimension. Another dimension is socially. Have I got friends? Am I nurturing my friends? Am I keeping in touch with my friends? How about my family? Am I keeping in touch with my family? Am I being kind to my family and so on? So now it's the successful life you define. Finances is one issue. One of the big dilemmas is retirement books. If you go into Barnes & Noble or Amazon and look at retirement books, over 80% of them talk about have you got your money taken care of.
And there's seminars all over the place.
Seminars all over the place. Retirement is all about your money.
Yeah.
Now, the real thing that retirement is are you going to have peace of mind? Remember on this chart I showed, the center is the peace of mind as you go through your life. As you go through all these, are you going to have peace of mind? The financial dimension is only one dimension of that life.
And how much is enough?
How much is it?
Some people don't realize, well, there's enough to take care of my needs and emergencies as well, and not focus necessarily on greater gain financially.
So seniors are preoccupied with finances, but yet it's only one of the dimensions of a successful life. Another dimension of a successful life is your health, and so you want to have activities that will keep you healthy, and food that will keep you healthy, and exercise that will keep you healthy.
Using our wonderful gyms that we have here.
That's right. Now, another thing is your emotional health and your spiritual health. Are you a person that is helping others some of the biggest things that seniors can do is to get out of their own brain by helping others, doing service projects. Maybe when they were 30, 40, 50 years old, they were work. They had to make money for their family and raise their family and all that. But if they're 65, if their financial needs are pretty well taken care of, not completely, maybe still have to do some work, what about service to others? What are you doing lately? So when I have seminars and we talk through what a successful life, we ask, have you got some things thought through on your spiritual dimensions of your life, your social dimensions of your life, your emotional contentment, your peace of mind? Do you feel like you're at peace now? And you can have peace on earth. You don't have to have it only after you die. You can be peaceful now. What does peace mean to you? Well, go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talk to a lot of people that aren't willing or don't even see that there's a dimension outside the box, so to speak. When you talk about service to others, if we've created enough good things for our own lives, and there are those out there who haven't been able to, for one reason or another, provided it for themselves, I do feel that it's up to us to step out of the box and see what can we do to help. Otherwise, our life hasn't made a difference.
Right. And so a successful life includes service to others. And that's a part of that, what seniors can think about. What are they contributing to their family and other people, not just themselves?
We have a lot of crime, and we have a big prison population. Are they the result of not being part of the cycle towards a successful life?
Most of them, you would say that being in jail is not part of a successful life. That would be one of those dimensions.
How did they get there?
How did they get there? First of all, you have to accept that being in jail is not a good goal. Boy, if I could just grow up and be in jail the rest of my life, that would be a wonderful thing. So, unfortunately, it goes like this. This is the best I can tell from my reading and counseling and teaching. The purpose of life is, in a few words, to love and be loved. We have to, that's a very short version, of course, but it's about relationships between people. You have to love yourself. You have to think, I'm a pretty good person, and I am worth being on this earth, and I'm going to make something of this life that I have. So you have to love yourself. Not in a narcissistic way, but accept that I'm a decent human being, okay? And if you love yourself, then you're in a position to love somebody else. And to love and to be loved is the purpose of life, because it's all about relationship. It is not just who has the most money at the time that they die, or who has the most toys at the time that they die, that is a success, but who has spread the most love, received the most love, given the most love. That's the purpose of life. Now, getting back to your people in jail. If I have taken somebody's life by murdering them, and I was put in jail, well, I'm not really making much of a contribution to this world, and they punished me for it. If I have robbed a bank, I didn't follow the cycle of life, which was to get an education and to work, and work for my money.
And have a work ethic.
And have a work ethic and work for my money and not steal from somebody else. Well, somewhere along the line, a person says it's all right to steal from somebody else. It's all right to kill somebody else, and they end up in jail. Now, is it possible that a person can go to jail for 10 years and have a conversion and get able to come back out in society? And the answer is yes. But it's extremely difficult, because by the time people have gone through this cycle, they have lost a lot of confidence in themselves. A gang, which is where a lot of criminals
they begin.
They get a gang is a substitute for the love of a family.
They see those
They
peers.
see the peers,
As
and the peers
family.
are like family. In fact, they have rituals.
Because they're
You have,
lacking
you,
that.
you have to beat up a kid to get into our gang. You have to kill somebody to get into our super gang. You have to rob a bank to get into our gang.
And they're doing that
So they have rituals.
to belong.
They do the gangs, which are the people that end up in jail mostly, are people who are looking for love because the purpose of their life is to love and be loved, and they haven't found it through the normal cycle of life of family bonds, friendship bonds, and then they say, but my peers are doing XYZ, and they do what their peers are doing. And when their peers are robbing a bank, they're robbing a bank. And when their peers are getting drunk, they're getting drunk. And when their peers are killing somebody, they kill somebody. And they have no moral compass. Because their moral compass was missing as they
At
were
the
growing
very
up.
beginning.
And they were looking for a moral compass, which is discipline. Discipline is part of the moral compass. Parents are part of the moral compass. They were looking for that. They didn't find it in their family,
And
and they found it on the outside. So the biggest secret is watch out. And as seniors, we can look for our grandchildren. Our grandchildren hanging around with the good kids.
Hanging with the good. Bill, as you envision the future, what do you see happening around the world pertaining to the cycle of successful life? How do you see our future?
Well, around the world is a very complicated situation because the cycle of life, and I've been to 15 different countries, and I'll just take an example of India. India right now is having a very good economy.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people in the economy, for them, that are getting wealthy. And then there are people who are very, very poor that are getting middle class. They're doing quite well for India. But still, 60% of the population is very, 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 very poor.
Mm-hmm.
We think we have poor people. The poorest 10% in the United States on a worldwide basis would be considered upper middle class.
As compared to
The poorest 10% in the United States would be considered upper middle class around the world, not just middle class, but upper middle class. And so,
what do you see happening?
well, the definition of a successful life has to be spread, and gradually it can be spread. My two rays of hope that I see right now are India and China. And India and China are growing so rapidly. But the thing that they have got going for them is that the parents are tremendously disciplined.
Well, that's a good thing.
And the parents are disciplining the children, and the children are growing, and they're getting good economies, and they're getting a successful life. China, in the last 25 years, has had 400 million people come out of poverty. So
Okay.
there's some hope there for a successful life in the United States and around the world.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. It's been great talking to you. As always, Bill, I learn a lot. I hope that those out there have enjoyed hearing you speak as much as I have here in the studio. Thank you again for being with me. For Barbara Mel Goldman and Channel 22, it's a wrap.
Thank you.